We're 11 minutes in. We haven't even got to our point
We
yet.
haven't even
I
got to
love
our
it.
point yet. Yeah.
This is just good conversation.
This is just. Wait, is it good conversation or is it just conversation?
The second one.
The second one.
The latter.
The latter.
I don't mind it.
We're getting the cue that our time is almost up. And I'm pretty sure he gave me a glare.
Wouldn't doubt it.
So, before we get into the conversation, I feel like there should be some disclaimers, maybe, right? Because tonight's topic is going to be, it potentially could be pretty heavy.
Definitely controversial.
Definitely controversial.
Yeah.
And controversial. Did I say controversial? Controversial. Whatever the word is. Now I can't. You know when you say a word too many times and it just doesn't make any sense anymore? Anyways, definitely
Controversial.
that. And but the point though, like I guess because when I was talking to somebody about this, they were really concerned about somebody who's experienced this. And there's no condemnation that comes with this. Like there's nothing that said, what's happened in our past, thankfully the Lord removes that, right? So we're not carrying that condemnation, we're not carrying that burden anymore. And if we are, then we should let the Holy Spirit free us of that. So it's not about condemnation. It's not about shame on you. We're probably going to have some pretty strong opinions about things as we talk about this. But for anyone who does wind up listening, I want to make it very clear that there's no judgment in that particular aspect. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
So no judgment. Definitely believe in the salvation and the forgiveness of Jesus, and I'm so thankful for that. Secondly, I think it's good, and we said this the very first week, and then we'd stopped saying it. Nothing we say is necessarily the opinion of our pastor or our church or any of those. So if you send an email to thetruthuncut.com thetruthuncut@gmail.com.
Yes.
We have one of those now. We can say it actually when we're doing this. thetruthuncut@gmail.com. Boom. If you send us an email, don't be mad at the pastor or the church. Definitely have your grievances with us.
Towards
Yeah.
Taryn.
Taryn specifically.
Oh, bring it. Please. I'll take it. I will respond in a very godly but firm fashion.
Oh, man. Absolutely.
But anyway, so there's that. The two little things I felt like we probably should point out is it's really not to come against people who have gone through this in the past, really. But anyways, and then definitely don't blame our pastor or our church for anything that we might say.
Yeah. Again, just to...
Go
ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right. Just to stack on what Taryn was saying just a moment ago. I mean, God's grace covers every sin if you're asking for his forgiveness. So there's no way in the world that this would be the one exception. We already talked about what the one exception was in a previous podcast.
Yeah. Go back and watch or listen to the unpardonable sin. This is not it.
No, it is not. And there are plenty of people, plenty of churches out there that if you do this one thing, and we're talking about abortion today.
I was going to say,
I'm just announcing that right now.
Unveil it now.
We're talking about abortion today, but there are plenty of people that, I mean, if you do this and a church finds out, family member finds out, whatever, I mean, your entire life, they're looking down on you. We are not here to do that.
No.
Just to, I missed my words, to reiterate, there we go, to reiterate what Taryn was saying a moment ago. I'm going to finish my peaches.
Yeah, finish your peaches. So anyways, yeah, with that being said and done, let's talk about it. So none of us have really any notes on this one. We're just talking from the heart.
Yeah. Absolutely. The
And the
heart
brain.
and the brain and memory.
An opinion.
Yeah.
Lots of opinion.
Absolutely.
David looks like he's looking something up, though.
Just trying to look busy.
Yeah, I know that look.
Oh, man. That's funny.
So kick us off.
So yeah, not really any notes. The only real exposure I have to this topic is just watching and listening to lots of different people and their takes on this. I watched listened to a lot of other podcasts, seen a lot of interviews of people. From our perspective, I think I am going to agree with you guys 100%, but I could be wrong.
Challenge accepted.
And really, a lot of times there was a lot of personal stories that would get brought up, and it's heartbreaking to hear any of those stories. But it's also super difficult, I guess, to have any sort of productive discussion when your entire argument is based around just your circumstance. And I'm not trying to take away from anything that anybody's ever gone through, but anecdotal circumstances are not what you should base your entire argument off of, I guess. So anyway, one of the biggest arguments I've ever heard from people who are okay with, or who are pro-choice, I'll just say that, who are pro-choice, I'm pro-life, is
pro-life.
They don't believe that a baby should be brought into the world if the mother or mother and father, if they're both involved, can't give them what they deserve, basically. But I think before you even answer that question, you have to start out with, where you define life begins, what the value of life is, how you value life. Because obviously we're coming at it from a religious standpoint, but I think it's also really important for people who aren't religious to recognize that it's also just like a moral dilemma that you have to think about. Even if you're not a Christian, I think everybody should still hold this value. Otherwise, life kind of turns into chaos. And that is that all life is valuable, and we should cherish that. And I believe life begins at conception. I don't know. You guys on the same page?
Yes.
So far, anyway?
So far.
Okay. All right. And then a lot of other times, personal examples will come up like, oh, I was raped, or there's incest, or I'm spacing another one right now. But anyway, the list continues for those. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, which that's such a small percentage, really. It's like 0.5% for rape, I think, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as like the cause for abortions, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. And people, again, they'll try to use that as the basis of their entire argument, and it's extremely difficult because that's such a small percentage that makes up such a large number of deaths in just America we'll talk about. But
well, then a way I've heard people talk about that, like Ben Shapiro, one of the things he would say is, if we take that out of the equation, if rape, incest, all that, if that's allowed, are you fine with removing abortion for everything else? And most people say no.
Will say no, yeah.
Yeah.
That's their argument, but that's their argument to justify their desire to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. The rape and the incest part is a very big topic. I don't know if we should start there.
Yeah, no.
Because
We don't have to.
there's something
We'll
a little
get
bit
there.
more black and white, I think, at the beginning as far as the pro-choice and the pro-life and and when life starts and what that all looks like. That I think is a little bit easier to nail down, and then we can maybe look. And then this is just me throwing this out there, and then move into the more questionable. And I don't say questionable as though it's okay. I'm just saying the more questionable reasons that people have that is more justifiable.
Yeah.
And again, not that it's justifiable, but when you look at the comparison of I just don't want to have a child, or I just can't provide for this child, as opposed to I was raped, or the incest piece, then that's a completely different thing by itself.
Absolutely.
As opposed to just I'm pro-choice because it's my body. I'm pro-choice because of whatever reason. I think that is much more black and white. Right?
Yeah.
Do you guys understand what I'm saying here? Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to explain, because I'm trying not to like diminish, like it's black and white regardless, but there's much stronger opinions, I think, on it's my choice.
Yeah.
Than on the other, because it is such a small number that actually are dealing with the other piece of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas which I will take this opportunity to throw out. I'm very pro-adoption. I have not adopted.
Yeah.
I'm very pro-adoption. And I think that when people say, well, I can't provide for this child, then give it up for adoption rather than murder it.
Yeah.
And I understand in some instances when you're young and you're scared to death about maybe your brain isn't working the way that it should be working, right? You're not thinking everything through because more often than not, now the people in Hollywood, whatever, they're stupid and they're gonna, but the average individual, even when they make that decision for the rest of their life, many of them struggle with that decision because at the moment they were like, I can't do this, and they're overwhelmed with all of this stuff, and they're scared, and they do it, and then later they're like, man, I can't believe that I did that, and it comes back to haunt them. Maybe not all the time, but at some points, like I've talked to women who have done, who have had an abortion, and they're like, I wish that I hadn't done it. At the time, they're in high school, and they were just like, I got to graduate, and I have my whole life ahead of me. But then in retrospect, they're like, it wasn't worth it. Right.
And then I think there's also the other side of that where they do it and they pretty much feel the need to, not everyone, but justify why they did it and dig further into that. You know what I mean? Like, like it wasn't bad. This is why we should be able to do it. Because I just think a lot of people can't face the facts of what they did.
Yeah.
Which I think too, because again, I believe that you should then give the kid up for adoption.
Yeah.
Instead of murder it, give the kid up for adoption. I think there's a subconscious thing though, where, and again, I'm not a scientist with neurology and all of the emotional things and all the stuff that goes into that, but I think that part of it is the fact that if I just have the abortion and I don't know anything about it, it's just there and then it's gone. But when you see the child, and then you watch the child leave, and then you know that there's a child out there that you gave up, I think abortion is a way, again, this is just my opinion, but is a way to try and avoid that other emotional thing later of I gave up a child and he's out there somewhere, or she's out there somewhere. And so this is the easier out than possibly one day running into them or them reaching out to me or whatever it is and having to deal with that later and explain to them why I gave it up. With all of that being said, I don't want to say a bigger point that frustrates me over the abortion itself, but adoption should be easier and cheaper.
Yeah, I was
right.
gonna say it's like 20 to 40,000 some places.
Yeah, and most people don't even get it approved. I mean, it's a long process, and I understand like background checks, absolutely, and you should be able to financially care for the person, for the child. But it should not be such a rigorous process, and then also be so expensive. To adopt a child. If you're wanting that child and you've shown your life has shown that you can, that you can do that or you want that, it should be much easier than it is. And so when we say, well, you should give it up for adoption, there's a small chance that kid will even be adopted. He might just be put into the system somewhere, in and out of foster care, and who knows how he'll wind up. And so that's an argument that they can come back against the pro-life piece and say, well, you're saying I should give it up for adoption, but then his life is going to be miserable anyways. Whereas if adoption was easier and cheaper, I think more people would be open to it. I heard I think it was a comedian actually talking about adoption. And he's like, you see signs everywhere. Come adopt a puppy. There's commercials like every commercial is adopt a puppy. Look at these kids or kittens or whatever. Here's your local animal shelter. No one knows where an adoption agency is at. Like they're hidden in the most obscure places in town, and nobody even knows they're there. But here,
I can tell you where ours is, if we even have one.
I don't even know if we have one.
Yeah,
I'm not even sure where you would find one in the state. I'm sure Portland
Pretty
has to
much
have
like
one, but
foster care.
a lot of foster care, but there's not a lot of push in society to adopt a child. Where in retrospect, like adopt this dog is everywhere. I mean, on the news, like there's this let's bring out little puppy Jojo and look how cute he is. And if you want to adopt him, then you can go down to wherever and pick, you know what I mean? But when it comes to children, no one really talks about it. And if you do talk about it, there's no one that can really afford it.
I think it also, in a way, promotes like bad. I don't know. You have other countries where you can go and adopt children, But like I remember Nepal reading about that a few years ago, how after an earthquake they were these British people, a lot of them were adopting kids from there, and they found out that they were actually being abducted and kidnapped by like gangs, and then sold to foreigners as like, this child needs a home. But so I think just by making all that much harder here, you're promoting just terrible things elsewhere. You know,
Right.
didn't really remember take that, but
Is it bad that every time I think of adoption, all I can picture is Little Orphan Annie or Oliver? Like that's I'm just playing this over in my head as we're talking about this over and over and over again.
Oh man, that's funny. I've never watched Annie.
I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't feel as bad then.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen the whole thing.
I don't think anyone has really.
Yeah, it's just one of those things we all know about. We know the sun will come out tomorrow.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
Sun will come out
we know
tomorrow.
that song ish, and
I
that's,
didn't even know that was what that was from.
It-
To be honest, I knew that
But
song.
even in that, I think the guy is it Warbucks?
Yeah.
Is it Warbucks
Daddy
who
Warbucks.
adopts her? Is that who it is? Like
Something like that.
even in that, it's about like his name. The whole premise is to show he has lots of money in
Yeah.
order to do this.
Gotcha.
Right? Like,
Gotcha. Yeah.
anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent, but I really think that adoption should be easier and more prevalent, and
Like-
should be.
That wouldn't be something I mind paying more taxes for. If you're gonna make me
Right?
pay more taxes,
Yeah,
do
if you're gonna
something
make-
useful.
Yeah, to find these people homes, these
Yeah.
kids homes, because the system is broken.
Well, 'cause that
And
is
the
a big-
foster care system, I mean, from my own personal professional experience, is very broken.
Yeah.
And then even if a kid does get fostered and they're like, I want to adopt this kid, he was really fit into our family. Now it's going through this long process where he's already lived with you for a year. It should be really easy at that point. Like,
Yeah, and I know people that have talked about fostering children, and then they want to adopt them, but then the parent comes back, and they want to take their kid back. They want to raise them, but you have people addicted to drugs, so they'll take them back, last 6 months, and
Yeah.
then
yeah.
the kid's back in the system.
Yeah. It's just not healthy.
I mean, our
back and
topic
forth
today
all
isn't
the
on adoption, but I feel like us pro-lifers would have a better argument to say give the kid up for adoption if adoption was actually easier.
Well, because that is
Yeah.
a big argument, is that, there's thousands of kids that need to be adopted. Why don't you go adopt them? Well, like, I've looked into it. It's really expensive and really hard.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a big part of it, to fix the system that we have, and to discourage abortions for people who really are struggling with it. If adoption was better, I mean, not like our podcast is going to change politics, but
Yeah.
just my opinion for anybody who does listen, we
Yeah.
should have easier adoption.
So I feel like even before adoption, there are a couple different options that you have just to like, if you
Abstinence?
don't want to get pregnant, yes.
Weird.
Abstinence is definitely one of them.
I'm just throwing that out there,
Oh,
maybe don't.
Like, the virgin
I'm trying
birth
really hard.
probably is not going to happen again, right? So,
Try not to be snarky about it, but
Yeah.
seriously, it is duh. It really is. If you're that worried about it,
yeah.
then just don't.
It all comes back to the culture and how we live and what's promoted. You see sex on TV, commercials everywhere. So it's really hard to think the kids aren't going to be out messing around.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we should have had a woman guest tonight, so we could ask like, how easy is it to get birth control?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think like at the health center, you used to be able to go and get like a bag of.
And again, not to put it all on the woman, like there's also options for the men.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's really easy.
Yeah.
So, like,
So that's the second one.
There
the
are
second option
options.
is contraceptives. That's another one.
both male and female. Like,
Yes.
take some responsibility for your actions.
If you do the first one, you'll definitely not have to get to the point
Of the second one?
of the second one. If you do the second one, there's a really good chance you won't have to get to the point of adoption.
Yeah.
If you do adoption, then you don't have to go. Well, you never have to go to the point of
Right.
abortion. But like that's 3 different
There's
escape routes right
a lot
there.
of ways to
Yes.
not get to the point of abortion.
Yes,
A lot,
absolutely.
yes. But the problem is we want to do what we want to do.
Yeah.
and then not have the consequences behind it. And that's, I mean, that's really the case for humanity, right? I mean, and it doesn't even matter if you're a person who's a Christian, who's considered yourself a Christian, or not, a saved person or an unsafe person. Even Christians are like, I want to do this and not have the consequences of it. I'm going to ask Jesus to forgive me, right? And just move on and keep doing it and whatever. And so it really is ingrained in us, I think, which is a big part of what you were saying, society, the culture, whatever, is to just have these outs to not have to deal with whatever it is that we've done. And that's not the way that it is.
Yeah.
There's always consequences. And even this is a very big consequence that affects the potential life of another being, even if it doesn't affect your life.
Yeah. There was so you brought up a moment ago about even Christians don't want to accept their consequences. I actually heard, I didn't know this existed, but I actually heard this pro-choice argument from a Christian. And not only were they pro-choice,
They're not a Christian.
But they were saying that the Bible is okay with it. So I think it's in Exodus, and it was saying if a woman or if a man suspects that his wife has cheated on him, this is like paraphrasing here, but if a man suspects the wife has cheated on him, they'll go and before a priest, and the priest will put like dirt in some water, and she'll have to drink this bitter water, is what the verse says. And if she's guilty, are you finding it?
I think it might be Numbers.
Numbers? Oh, I could have got it wrong. My mistake.
It's in the Old Testament.
Yeah, it
Moses
is definitely the Old Testament. But yeah, if she drank this bitter water, if she was guilty, then she would miscarry. And if she wasn't guilty, then nothing would happen. And so their argument there is basically saying that God is okay with abortion. That's what they're saying. And it's really easy to shut that down.
It's really easy to shut that down.
First off, don't cheat on your husband. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Just saying.
But you have to understand, if you're speaking from a Christian perspective, right, the God that we serve is Lord over life, okay? So causing a miscarriage as a punishment for a sin that you committed is not the same for you voluntarily going out and getting your baby killed.
Right.
So that was something that, like, it was yesterday that I heard that. It, like, completely shocked me. I did not know that existed at all. So yeah,
it's not something they teach in Sunday school.
No. There's some battle going on inside of them that, yeah.
But I think that your point there though is dynamic, right? Punishment for your sin is different than you choosing to not face your consequences, right? And we see this. I mean, there are multiple times where children die in the Bible, and it's not good. And I even think that I really think that it even grieved the Lord to do it. But at the same time, or to cause it or to let it happen or whatever it is, because I don't see his character, Old Testament or New Testament, even though it did happen a few times in the Old Testament, that he took pleasure in that. And then also we don't know, I mean, never mind. I was going to say something that's completely not biblical, but we don't know what kind of reward those children got when they got to heaven.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they were more special than everybody else, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't just like, all right, go stand over there with the rest of everybody else. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And again, it comes down to and you know, I understand this is a very Christian perspective, and that anybody who's listening to this who does not believe in God totally will just write it off. But he's very sovereign, and he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't do anything just because. And so in those instances and the other instances where children did die, he obviously had a purpose and a plan, and it was bigger than what we can probably understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, because I think of David and Bathsheba and their first child, right? There was punishment for their affair, and for what he did to Uriah. And so she miscarried the first baby, or it not miscarried so much, but anyways, it was born dead.
Yeah.
And so, but that was punishment for his actions, but the baby itself didn't suffer. I mean, and it kind of starts getting really twisted in there, because some people are going to say, well, the baby's not suffering, so what does it matter? But the dynamic part of the important part of what you're saying is the punishment for your actions does not make your choices okay, right?
Think about the perspective about pregnancy in general, the shift from how they felt about it then to how they feel, how just like people in general feel about it now. It was such a gift back then. Like there was nothing that made them happier than having a child. Like how special that was to them.
There's and I don't want to quote a bunch of scripture, but it says, children are a heritage from the Lord, a reward.
Yeah.
Like the Bible calls it a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. Like, you're blessed if you're able to have children, if you're able to have multiple children. It's a reward.
Yeah. Now they're a nuisance.
And now they're a nuisance.
Nuts.
They're an inconvenience. They're, we completely look at them completely different. Corey, stop laughing at me. Don't you say it.
Oh no.
We're moving on.
Yep. Good call. Man, now I'm trying to wrap my head around what was going on there.
Children are reward. They're not bad.
Children are a reward. They're a blessing from God.
He's dying.
Oh gosh.
I was just reading that scripture you're talking about, and it seems like it's more of it's Numbers 11. It seems like it's more of like a if a man just suspects, says if he suspects his wife has gone astray and unfaithful to him, or he's jealous and thinks that she's done this, then they go to the priest and he takes holy water and dust, and basically she says she has to like make a vow before God, pretty much saying, I did not do this, but and if she's lying, then she'll be cursed and she will miscarry. But like, I don't know how that's an argument. They're drinking dust. It's not like they're going in there and having something surgically removed.
Well, also think about this though. We look at things so black and white sometimes, but by the time it gets to that point, if we're going to use that scripture as a argument for abortion, which is ridiculous. But anyways, if it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, but if we're going to use that scripture, it is very likely, I mean, it doesn't go into a lot of detail, but it's very likely that when they get there and they're standing and they're like, I got to drink this, or just come clean.
Yeah.
Like, go through
But then you
whatever I'm
get
going to go
stoned.
through, or just come clean. Or then you get stoned?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure the other
Either
way
way,
is you'd
it's
probably
done.
miscarry and then get stoned.
Well,
Because
was
then
this-
they'd be like, oh, yeah, we figured you out.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd probably
Was
get
this while they
stoned
were in the
either way.
wilderness, though? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of that was just for before they were in this.
In Numbers.
Does it say she got stoned afterwards?
I don't know. It's a long passage.
It's a long passage.
It says it, I'm pretty sure it says it right at the beginning of that. Like, you know how it'll have like the chapter and then it'll have like a little like subtitle kind of thing.
Right.
It's
The
like
test
right,
for an
I'm pretty sure it's right
unfaithful wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, so we're going to use that to be pro-abortion.
Mm-hmm.
But do we want to skip all of the other scriptures in
Yeah.
that same area that talk about stoning your unfaithful wife,
Yeah.
or beating your children, or right? None of those. Those are taboo.
Yeah,
But we're going to
yeah,
pick this one out to say abortion's okay, which kind of comes back to a conversation that we tried not to have that we kind of did have a while back. If you break one of them, you break them all.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't get to pick and choose which one of the Old Testament laws you're going to follow and which ones you're not. Because if you choose to follow one, you have to follow all of them. Right? So if we're going to go with this route, well, God doesn't mind. Well, then you got to go with everything else that God doesn't mind.
Yeah.
And odds are, one of us is going to die today. You know, I mean, whether it be me as the man or you as the woman, one of us is dead today.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we draw hard lines on those kinds of things, that really doesn't work out in our favor if we're really going to follow it through. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just my take on it.
Yeah.
There was a thing in Time that said that the Bible does not speak against abortion. And it goes through as if it's a long article about how the Bible doesn't talk bad about abortion. It doesn't even mention abortion.
No, the word's not in there.
Well, the word's not in there.
Neither is rapture.
Neither is rapture, right? Yeah. There's a lot of, well,
Sure.
you know,
Omnipotent isn't either.
omnipotent isn't either?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, look at that. I learned something today. But their whole point was it doesn't talk about it. And you would think that if it's going to talk about everything else, because there's a lot of details in there, right? And I always go back to, if you borrow your neighbor's goat and the goat lives, then you're fine. If the goat dies, and there's 1,000 reasons why the goat dies, some of them you're reliable for, some of them you're not. Some of them you have to pay half of what the goat was worth, so I'm going to just replace the goat. Like, it goes into a lot of details on some silly things, at least silly from our perspective. And so they're saying, if it goes into that much detail about that, why would it not talk about prematurely ending a pregnancy? Because it does talk about pregnancy. It talks about rape. It talks about incest. It talks about all those things. Somewhere in there, it had to have been a thought, or a thing in some fashion that this would be possible. And it doesn't talk about that. And they're using this as the Bible doesn't say abortion is bad because it doesn't reference it or talk about it. But in comparison to time, or in rebuttal, I guess, to time, it does talk about how we're supposed to cherish children, protect children. That scripture we just talked about was, be glad that you're having children. And then there, even in the New Testament, Jesus speaks out against those who would sacrifice their babies for their own wants. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it can get any clearer than, do not sacrifice your child for your own want. Well, if I'm having an abortion, then I'm sacrificing my child for my own desires.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, boom. Mic drop? I don't even know. Like, don't tell me the Bible doesn't talk about these kinds of things, because the Bible doesn't say don't have an abortion. No, it doesn't say that. It says cherish your children, take care of them, be glad that you have them, and then don't murder them for your own personal desires.
Yeah. So that was
Can't get clearer than that in
that
my brain.
Oh, absolutely. That brings up another argument that I've heard from pro-choice people, and that's, if you're okay with, or if you're not okay with murder, because we call abortion murder, they don't. If you're not okay with murder, then how are you okay with, this is coming from a vegan, but how are you okay with murdering animals and eating them, right? First off, immediate response, Christian or not, that's a moral thing. You got to figure out that a human life is more valuable than an animal's, right? There's a whole lot more that a human can do for society, for the rest of the world, than one stinking cow can. He's just going to make more cows.
And taste so good.
Right? So
Everyone in this room is in agreement with that.
yeah, absolutely.
One steak.
I'm actually going plant-based. I'm actually going plant-based.
Plant-based?
So next week, there'll only be 2 people in the podcast.
So first off, you find the value of human life versus animal life, right? So secondly, if for some reason you still aren't on the same page as far as the value of life, I still would like to think that there's something that separates humans from animals, right? Like cognitively, we think differently. We have different survival reactions. We've got different caretaking reactions. So like one of the examples that I found I thought was really interesting is that, and this is, I'm just going to announce right here, this is the only case where I would ever say I'm okay with it. Okay. 100%. This is the only case where I would say it's okay with it.
I'm curious.
So if you're in the wild, right, and you're a wild animal, a lot of times mothers will kill and eat their young so that they can survive, so that they can make more young, right? Because if they die, then the young are going to die too, and then everybody's just dead, okay? So a big argument, which is, it's really difficult to make this argument now because of technological advances in the healthcare industry.
I can already say I'm probably going to disagree with where he's going on this one.
So we'll see. So a lot of people will make the argument.
Well, I agree with him. So.
Corey, I need you on my side because it's 2 against 1 right now.
So a lot of people will make the argument that if the child is going to kill the mother, but the child can live, then the mother should be able to abort the child, right? So that she can live. And I'd like to say that that's where we're different from animals. Again, animals will kill their baby in order for them to live. If you look at the argument like this, and it's, if I go through with this pregnancy and I know that my child will live, but I'm going to die, it's a very selfless action. But I think that's one that you should have to make. I think that's one morally, I think you should bring that baby to term. You've got to live your life. Give that baby a chance to live theirs.
Never mind. I don't disagree with him.
Boom. However, if you're at the hospital and they say there's nothing we can do, both of you are going to die unless you abort the child. That is the only circumstance ever where I would say I'm okay with this, ever.
How long have we been doing this?
Maybe not even.
I
Had you in the first half and then I lost you?
no.
Oh, okay.
I actually thought you were gonna go and yeah.
Gotcha.
I agree with you.
Oh, okay, cool.
But
Okay. Yes.
What about those who would say you should not abort the baby?
Okay.
Pray about it and trust that God will make both live or whoever needs to live or whatever, and just put your faith in God.
Amen.
Or maybe not so much aborting the baby in that instance, but removing the child from the mother and trying to sustain its life.
Yeah, that also depends on how far along
How
in the
far along
pregnancy
you are,
'cause
right.
I think Alexa's
Again,
siblings were born like,
Part of this
3.5
makes me
months
laugh
early.
because we're men
yeah.
Right.
talking about things that we don't quite understand the same
You
as a
know.
woman
Yeah.
would understand.
50% of the women out there agree with us, though, so we can speak for them.
Yeah.
Facts. We love you, ladies.
But what do you say to that though? Because like,
Yeah.
and I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
In fact, Heather, my kids' mom,
Mm-hmm.
we had a brief discussion with Gabe. There were some issues during the pregnancy, and,
Yeah.
his cord had wrapped around, and they weren't sure if he'd be able to fix that. And there was you or him, but we got to
Yeah.
pick one so that we can go in for him or whatever. And I think that's
Yeah.
how it worked out. I don't remember all the details, to be real honest. That was a long time ago. I just know that Heather and I had this conversation regarding Gabriel specifically. And it was difficult because it is, who do you choose? Like the wife or the mother or the child? And of course we chose the child ultimately, is what we would have gone with if it had actually come down to it. Thankfully the Lord took care of it, and there were some other complications, but whatever, it all worked out. And I'm definitely, if she ever listens to this, she'd be like, that's not exactly how it went. But there were complications. That was the decision that we had made, and we wound up not having to make that decision. But I guarantee you that there were people who were involved in that, who even knew that had happened or whatever, or if they heard that story, or, well, you should have just prayed about it and trusted that God would do it instead of choosing to terminate one or the other. What do we say to that? Like, because that's true. We trust in the Lord. We trust in God to do what's right. But do we have any responsibility in that at that point?
Yeah. I think, first off, if anybody isn't a Christian, they just won't understand this part of it, this part of the conversation. I don't think. But I think as a man, that's hard, because I know how I feel about it, and I mean, you should just pray about it ultimately,
right? Because
it's still
the whole,
so difficult.
The Christian part is like, well,
Yeah.
yes, we should pray
Just
and
pray
trust
about it,
God, and whatever He makes happen happens. But in reality, there's also that part where I think He puts some things on us to make decisions.
Yeah. I feel like it's the same thing with like planning a retirement, right? You can trust God, which I think you should. I trust God ultimately with everything, but I still set up some sort of a retirement for myself.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I just think there's some decisions, like you just said, that He allows us to make, I guess, ultimately.
Yeah. But that's a
And-
hard one,
yeah,
and I don't
no,
have I really
absolutely.
don't have an answer for it. But as you were saying,
Yeah.
as you were giving that example, I'm like, but there is this. There's another option where it's not.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? Like I don't even know how you would do that, because it's, of course, there's that part that says you always trust Jesus, always, and then there's the other part where it's like, but
Yeah.
what if they both don't survive and I'm alone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
absolutely.
it is a. Anyways, I was just throwing that out there.
Man, that's tough.
Tough.
What's up?
Corey's making some noise over there.
You clicking? You fidgeting? He's got like a fidget pen with him all the time.
Me too, though. I have a highlighter. I actually have a highlighter that and sometimes I'll look over and Corey knows me and he's just like, here you go. And he
If I
hands
don't
me
have
my-
something to fidget with, I feel like I just crack my knuckles all
I do
the
that a
time.
lot too.
Yeah.
Actually, my watch has this thing that I do this a lot with.
Oh,
Anyways,
nice.
we're really getting off topic now.
That's true.
Before I derailed you on that one, sorry. With my question, you were talking about choosing. Do you remember why?
No.
Where we were going with that?
I remember, I mean, ultimately the argument is like, if you make any sort of argument for, I think the whole thing started from a vegan saying
Yeah.
a cow's life is just as important as a human's, or like a spider even. That was literally in their argument. Was a spider's life
Well,
is
it's
just as
getting down to
important as a human.
semantics of
But
the whole thing because
Yeah.
like the vast majority of them, based on statistics I can find, and they're really hard to find sometimes, but like off the CDC and various surveys, they're for convenience.
Yeah.
Most of the abortions are for convenience, and I don't have enough money. I've already had kids, or I'm not ready for a family. That's like 75%
Yeah.
of like.
Oh man.
Okay, so we
it's
get down to
tragic.
these like, what about this scenario?
Yeah.
Well, can we deal with like the convenience part first, and then
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, we'll do whatever. I'm not sure
I'm
that.
not saying us now.
I'm just saying.
Smarter men than us have been talking about this a lot longer.
For a lot longer.
Yeah.
Still debating.
For our conversation, I mean, I'll sit here and observe you two talk, but when we get into the very specifics, like when we talk about the rape and the incest, I don't know. I mean, again, personally,
Yeah.
no, do not get an abortion, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I've never
been
been in
there.
that situation. I don't know all of the stuff that comes with that, both the physical and mental trauma. I don't know. And I feel like that is a completely different subject in itself. Again, I say no, but that's me.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything. But when it comes to the convenience part, shame on you.
Yeah.
And I
absolutely.
think it's funny because, and I know that this has been brought up 1,000 times, and nothing that we're saying today probably has, we're not some new, fresh, like, oh my gosh, I've never heard
Fresh
that
take.
before, But if you're pregnant,
Okay. I'm a lady now.
In today's world,
it's
that's a different conversation.
it's possible. Next podcast.
Actually, you know how much? Never mind. You know how much money you would make if you were pregnant? You would make so much money trying to figure out how you became pregnant.
Oh yeah.
like
just saying.
Junior or whatever.
It'd be wild.
Is that the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's an old movie from like late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where Arnold Schwarzenegger gets pregnant. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a tearjerker.
Is it? I don't remember that much. I just remember Arnold Schwarzenegger being
No.
pregnant. Anyways, but let's just say
Okay.
you're
let's say I'm
pregnant. I kill you.
Yes. Double homicide.
I am charged
Boom.
as a double homicide.
Yep.
Well, it's the same as
Even
if
though
I-
the same judge
Yep.
will rule that is not an actual being and you can get a
because
divorce.
you're
Never
taking
did
away
abortion and did
because you're taking
abortion.
away Jeremiah's choice.
Yeah.
So, let's say that Jeremiah chooses to get an abortion next week.
Right.
It's all planned out. Everyone knows about it. He's going to get an abortion next week. I kill him tonight. I'm still charged with a double homicide.
Right. Or if you just punch him in the stomach repeatedly till he has a miscarriage. That's
Well, still, yeah, if I do, if I, and you don't even die, but the baby dies, I'm still charged
Yeah.
with murder for that baby.
I should not have laughed that much. I'm
But
sorry.
he's just picturing me punching him in the stomach.
Yeah.
But my point is,
Yeah.
if I kill that child,
Yeah.
even if you had decided, you know what, I'm going to get an abortion, everybody knows I'm going to get an abortion, I'm still going to be charged with the murder of that kid.
Yeah.
Even if the judge will say, it's your body, your choice. How does that make any sense? And I think that's part of what frustrates a lot of people.
how does
Is
my
it's-
body, my choice make any sense at
It's
all?
not consistent through the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? And then, of course, we shouldn't go here, but my body, my choice. I'm forced to get the COVID vaccination.
Yep.
I can't
Right?
go and
But it's my body, my choice, but it's only my choice when it comes to abortion.
Yeah.
or like when it comes to drugs, my body, my choice. Why can't I just shoot heroin all day if that's what I want to do.
Well,
That's
if you live in this state, you can.
well, that's true.
Yay,
So-
Oregon. Oh man, it's bad.
It's bad.
You said something a moment ago that just made me think. Keep talking.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah.
keep talking, just going on and on and on and talking some more. But no,
And the same
it-
people that say that are like have no problem telling us what we can and can't do. Like people against guns, people against violent video games, they have no problem telling us what we can and can't do. But it comes to that, and it's my body, my choice.
Yeah.
it's the only time that it counts in something as drastic as that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
As something that is involving the life of another person. It's the only time that that counts. In every other situation, it's not okay. If I just decide to chop off my arm, they're going to commit me.
Yeah.
Like they're going to think, you crazy.
Yeah.
You need to go and talk to somebody and be heavily medicated. Even if I stand up and be like, my body, my choice. I wanted to chop off my arm. I'm allowed to do that. It's my body. No one in their right mind is going to be like, we should leave you alone. Why not? Because you'll probably kill yourself or hurt yourself more or kill yourself.
Yeah.
My body, my choice.
Yep.
Yeah, if you want to go
But-
jump off the bridge at the park, you get a ticket. You know what I'm saying?
Spoken like a man who's got a ticket.
Just saying.
It is true though, and when it comes to any of the other choices that could potentially even have a life or death situation
Yeah.
with my own personal body, I can go to jail, I can get a ticket, be committed to a mental hospital or something. Then it's not okay. But when it comes to that, then it's all right, and that does not make sense, and it doesn't go all the way across the board, and that's I guess where the people who argue these kinds of things, I have a hard time taking their arguments seriously because they will argue against my body, my choice on other issues,
Yeah.
right? And if they do argue that you should be allowed to mutilate yourself or commit suicide, then they have a darker issue
Oh, absolutely.
that Jesus needs to help him with. Because I'm not even sure that there's enough medication to help that, where it's
Yeah.
like, no, everybody should just be able to chop off their own limbs and kill themselves.
I think everyone will do it in the future.
Everyone will do it in the future.
Yeah.
It'd just be a
Yeah,
thing.
it's ludicrous.
I mean, granted, if you could give me some like bionic man capabilities, I might be like, okay, take my arm, but give me,
Well, if we want to go down that road, I mean, come on. Yeah. Who wouldn't do it?
Who wouldn't want
I
to be
mean,
a
$6 million
cyborg?
man.
The $600 man. Just,
Yeah, that's about what I can afford. I got a really strong mechanical pinky.
grip anything.
Oh my gosh.
This is why we can't have good, serious conversations.
So you talked about a moment ago if I want to chop off my own arm, right? Not exactly on the same page, but definitely off the main topic. Someone told me about the other day. They were watching I don't know if it was like a true crime or something like that. I don't know. But somewhere over in Europe, there was when like the internet first started, right? They didn't have all these weird restrictions. People just started making websites willy-nilly, stuff like that, right?
Oh, way back in the
Way back. I'm only 23.
Windows 3.2.
So
3.0.
someone had created this website with like an online chat about cannibalism.
Oh,
And, like-
my body, my choice.
Yeah, I'm getting into this.
Oh, right.
So these people, like hundreds and hundreds of people, were like writing in this chat saying that how they wanted to be cannibals and oh man, how great it would be to try a tasty, I don't know, bicep or something like that. I don't know what they said, right? But there was this one guy who owned this pretty big house and he converted one of his rooms into a slaughter room, right? And like he would like make different meats and stuff like that in this room and like he would make hamburger out of stuff, but it wasn't actually human food.
Okay. No, it
Or
wasn't
like
human food.
meat. It
Okay,
wasn't
I was
human
like,
meat, sorry. So he would get like beef and stuff like that and then he'd like start to shape some of it
To
so
where
that
it
it
looked
kind
like-
of looked like it was human body parts, right? And then he's like eventually one day he gets kind of brave and he's like, "Does anybody want to volunteer? I want to eat. I want to eat." And he didn't confess that he'd never eaten human before, but like all these people saw that he was doing this. And they were like worshiping him basically because he was actually
Going
doing
to
the
eat
cannibalism
someone.
and all of them were like just wishing to do it, right? So someone up and volunteers, and then they back out because they came to their senses. But then another guy volunteers, okay, and he goes through with it. But the one condition was, he's like, "I'll let you eat me, kill me and eat me, but first you need to chop off a limb of my body so that I can try me too."
Oh.
So,
As you're one to do.
Guess what? I'm not really all that hungry anymore. Like I was starving, and now I'm good.
the plot thickens.
Oh.
So goes to his house, literally like sets his dinner table up all fancy, like he's having a big banquet
Like
or
Hannibal
something.
Lecter style? Like
Yes. So like just him and this one dude, he removes a body part. I don't know. He probably cauterizes it or something like that, right? So that he can actually not bleed out. But then they sit together and they eat him. He eats himself, and then
very
he kills
Hannibal
him.
Lecter style.
Exactly. He kills him, cooks up like the rest of his body, makes a bunch of meat. Bunch of time goes by, and the government cops, whoever found it, ended up finding this website and like saw all of this stuff that this guy had done, right? And so they go to his house and they investigate, and the guy totally does a great job pulling off this huge lie, like it never happened, all this stuff. And then they see all this hamburger meat in his freezer. I don't know if it was all hamburger meat, but like he made like steaks and stuff like that out of this dude. And they're looking through his freezer, and they're like, "What kind of meat is this?" He's like, "Oh, it's just beef, no big deal." And I guess they like took some of it as evidence. They wanted to investigate a little bit, and there was like hair follicles in it, like human hair follicles in some of the meat, and that's how they found out that this dude was a murderer. But because the guy volunteered himself, they could not convict him. This is in Europe somewhere, so they have different laws than us, but
Of course it was in Europe.
right? Because this guy volunteered to be killed and eaten, they couldn't do jack diddly.
Okay, that wouldn't fly in America.
No. I hope
That's
not.
a weird
I
story.
really hope not.
Well, like in the UK, it's technically okay to eat people because they don't have any laws against it. So you can technically be a cannibal. Like
as long as they were already dead or something, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think
It's freaky.
I was just reading Idaho legal,
It's legal in Idaho?
according to this random website.
So there's this thing. You're not supposed to believe everything that you read on the internet, David. That's how World War
I
II
read
got
something
started.
the other day talking against that. So
I read that on a blog once.
According to this random website. It's so far off topic, but I had to bring it up because you said my body, my choice.
In Idaho, my kids are there right now.
Oh, no.
Like that freaks me out a little bit.
oh,
I lived there for a long time.
real, never mind.
Oh, goodness.
Anyways, I think maybe kind of bring this to a wind down.
Yeah, but I feel like we could finish up on those like circumstances of when rape and incest happens. Here's how I feel about it. Not a woman, so I couldn't get pregnant. Under these situations or any other situation.
You could
Um,
still
I'm sorry.
experience it as a man.
I could still. Are you saying like it could still be, or are you saying my wife could be like raped?
I didn't
or-
want to say your wife.
Yeah.
That makes it personal, but
Yeah.
a man can.
Oh, okay. So somebody's wife could experience that.
Yeah.
I still don't believe that following up somebody else's heinous act with another heinous act, because again, I still view a baby as a
baby.
life. It is a life. So I don't believe that somebody else's terrible actions should be followed up with murder. That's how I feel about that. And obviously, it gets way more difficult when somebody's actually in that situation.
100%. And that's why earlier I was like, I personally disagree with it.
Mm.
But as a person, if a person was to come to me and say, "What should I do?" I would tell them no. But at the same time, I'm not them, so I can't even wrap my brain around it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think in general we would all agree it's just wrong. Don't do it.
Mm.
Period.
Yeah.
And I would tell a person not to do it, but we're not in those situations.
Yeah. I watched, there's this thing, I forgot what it was called, but basically these people come together, and they're from opposing viewpoints, and they come in together and they just kind of sit and debate a little bit. And one of the guys on this, panel, I guess, he was on this panel, was a failed abortion.
I've seen a lot of stuff about
Yeah.
people like that.
And so first off, obviously he is super grateful that it didn't work.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure there was some sort of like, when he was younger, there was probably some emotional
Right.
distance between him and his mother because she tried. But she, like, he,
Some distance there.
yeah. But she is so incredibly grateful that she didn't have to deal with that regret, because she knew, like, thinking about it now, especially having a relationship with her son,
Right.
watching him grow up, do all this great stuff, thinking back about the fact that she tried to do it, like the immense amount of regret that she feels about it, and then wondering, like, oh, what if it did happen? What if it was successful? I wouldn't have my boy right now. And that goes back to just what you said earlier about when you do it, for no matter what the reason is, down the road, you're going to end up thinking about it at some point and just wonder what could have been. What would my child look like right now?
Even in those more rough situations,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't know what. Okay, so I was raped, but in 20 years, I'm going to remember the fact that, yeah, maybe I don't want that person's child, but I still killed a child, and
Yeah.
maybe that child would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, I mean, there's so many variables that what could happen after this moment
Mm-hmm.
that you just shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You just shouldn't do it. One thing, well, I'd let you finish first, and then I'll.
Oh, that was all. That was it.
One thing I do want to say, kind of a two-part thing, I think. First off, if you see Christians doing this, yes, they're crazy. And that does not, at least as far as we're concerned, I would assume, you might disagree with me, but we do not stand by them. If you are a Christian who does this, shame on you, and you should find Jesus. But those who are standing on the street corner holding up the signs of aborted babies, those who are driving the vans down the street that have all the pictures of the aborted babies, all of that craziness is definitely, and again, my opinion, but not okay.
Absolutely
You
not.
are not shining the light of Christ in that. You are taking something horrible and disgusting and traumatizing people. You're not scaring them straight.
Yeah.
You're traumatizing them.
Who are you really convincing?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not convincing anybody at that point.
Yeah.
You're taking children who see that and traumatizing them. You're taking adults who see that and traumatizing them.
My daughter.
And
like,
you're
sorry.
my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she was like 9, I remember the guys standing on the corner. We do it every Sunday. He was constantly trying to get her. I don't even want to know about sex. Why would I want to know?
Yeah.
There's babies that are aborted.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Exactly. And it makes Christians who have compassion, who want to love those people and bring them to know Jesus, who have gone through that, it makes us look stupid,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Because now it's, well, Christians are crazy and they stand on the street corner with signs and pictures. No, we don't.
Yeah.
Your people who need to find Jesus do,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not at all a way to get people to come to know him. Through love, and we don't condone the action,
Yeah.
but we forgive it, and we try and get people to come to know the grace and forgiveness of God. That is just ridiculous, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being a little bit firm on this, I
Honest.
guess. It's honest, but it's
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I really do believe you might say you love Jesus, but you can't love Jesus and hate the people enough to try and convince them that way.
Yeah.
There's a difference between old school hellfire brimstone preaching and get your life right, and taking something so heinous and putting it on display, which
Yeah.
is what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're displaying it for the world as
Basically trying to get attention.
yeah.
Honestly.
And
Yeah.
and again, I mean, yeah, I disagree with abortion just like they do, but the way that they're doing it
Yeah.
is not godly. It is not Jesus, and it is not spreading the gospel or bringing someone who has gone through that to know the Lord.
Yeah.
If anything, it's pushing people away and causing you to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to say it. You look like an idiot. So, I mean, my final thoughts on this is if you see that or you've experienced that, it's not okay even from a Christian perspective. That's not how the church in general, I believe, really views that, and don't write off Christians or write off God because that was your experience.
Yeah.
You know. So, anyways,
I agree.
there's my second tangent of the night. Sometimes I get those.
Got third in you?
No, I don't. Not.
Sounds like we're all on the same page.
We are all on the same page, which is so far in every. Is this number 6? Yep. Number
Yeah.
6. 6 in, and we've had 0 disagreements.
Yeah. We thought we had one tonight.
I really did, because I really thought you were going to be like, nope, save the wife, kill the baby.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, because you were setting the whole thing up with we can make more babies.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, I don't know. He's newly married, so of course he wants to save his wife. Give him 20 years.
We didn't even get into
joking. That was a joke. That was a
We didn't
joke.
even get into abortions for disabilities.
Oh Lord.
Oh,
Still
yeah.
no.
Yeah. Still
no.
absolutely not. I mean, you look at anybody who has a child who has a mental disability, a physical disability. They had and first off, they're ecstatic.
We
to
thought we
have
were
their
ending,
child.
but
I thought we were ending too. But thank you,
I was
David.
just saying.
So there was somebody told me there was a Super Bowl ad that they watched or something like that. There was a girl who was a swimmer, and she was missing her lower leg portions. Like she had her thighs, I think, or something like that.
this year
I don't know if it was this year. This could have been an old video that I
it's
watched.
possible though.
But she was a swimmer, and it was a video about adoption. She was adopted because she had a birth defect. So she was put into adoption. This family adopted her, and now she's just like this insanely good swimmer or something like that. And like they didn't super push it as an advertisement, like pro life. Sorry, but I feel like anytime there is an adoption commercial like
Right.
that, like it doesn't happen very often. We talked about that earlier, but like this one particular commercial is so pro-life.
Was much more pro-life. Like,
Absolutely.
we're not gonna push it, but if you have brains, you'll see it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like,
I don't even know how that got started, but
the disability
beautiful
thing,
commercial.
I really
Yeah.
do not think. Again, no, a disability or the baby having a disability is not a good enough reason to end its life.
Yeah, absolutely not.
And personally, I mean, in my own work field, I deal with individuals with disabilities on the daily, and they're amazing human beings. Yes, they require extra support, but their life is just as important, so much so that we take great pains to make sure that their life, that they can experience life just like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot tell me, well, they have a disability, so it's just better to end it, and they won't have to go through that in their life. No, these people love life more than you and I love
That's
life.
like
Yeah.
Nazi stuff.
Oh,
That's what the
absolutely.
Nazis
Yeah,
did.
that's like Nazi
Anything
stuff.
like a burden to the state, well, just abort that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Dang.
so again, way no, and I'm very passionate about that though. But also because we work in the field, and so maybe it's a
That sounds cool. We work in the field.
we work in the field,
Company men.
which is opposite of field work.
Why'd you point at me?
I'm not answering that on this. I'm not. I'm
You
not.
always gotta go there.
I'm not. Nope. On that note, we really need to end.
Oh man. So thank you guys again for listening.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed it. We kind of went all over the place, but I hope you heard our heart and all that, and understand where we stand.
And if you have questions, you can email us at
Where is it, Corey? He's got his microphone.
The Truth Uncut Podcast at gmail.com.
hold
Thank
it.
you,
Truth
sir.
Uncut podcast.
The Truth Uncut Podcast at gmail.com.
Did I say? I think I was just saying the Truth
You did
Uncut
not.
at gmail.com last time.
think
I
you
did not put podcast on there, so I'm glad that
You have to type in podcast.
Let's see if Corey can put some links up around.
Yeah.
You know,
Down here.
Bing
and up there.
bong.
maybe
Yeah.
some previous videos.
All right, well that's all.
He does not like us. That's the it. So, anyways, yeah. Next
Yeah.
time we'll
talk some more.
We don't know what we're gonna do next time yet. Yeah, so. The Truth Uncut Podcast.
Truth Uncut
No,
Podcast
at
at
gmail.com.
gmail.com.
We messed it all up. So
He'll figure it out.
all right.
Link is in the comments.
Link is in the comment.
Good tweet. Good tweet.
It's always just gonna go back to the link
Yeah.
is in the comment.
Yeah.